All right. Good morning, Rabbi Isai. It doesn't matter. There's somewhere in the world that it's morning right now. How's everybody doing? It's great to see Binyamin Schwartz from the Five Towns. I haven't seen him since they changed the clocks. Mitch! You know, I asked about you. I went to the bank. I'm not kidding. I went last week to Fifth Third. They said, I said, I want to see Mitch. Where's Mitch? He said, Mitch, well, you haven't been here in 2 years, my friend. That's right. I haven't been there. How you doing, Reb Mitch? Eli Deichman, Yishkoyach. Today's shir, Lili Nishmas, Imi, Rusbas Mordechai. It's one of those nail biters because as soon as the shir is over, I have to go pack because, of course, I didn't pack yet. Today's shir, sponsored by Ira Greenstein, Refuah Shlema for Reb Moshe David Ben Bela. I've noticed that these Refuah Shlemas, they're starting to pour in a lot more than usual. I just found out that a woman who lives directly below me, one floor below me, not Mrs. Epstein, who's 2 floors, directly below me, she was nifter from COVID. Older woman. We got to take this seriously, Rabbi Isai. Today's shir is sponsored by Mark Bernstein, Lezeicha Nishmas Avi Moiri, Henry Bernstein, Tzvi Ben Naftali Olav Shalom on the 30th yard side of his Ptira. His neshama should have an aliyah. And by John Gruen, not related, yard side of Gershon Ben Yosef Yehuda. The neshama should have an aliyah. So, you know, I got up a little early to prepare today's daf. It's a 10-hour difference for me. Instead of 12 o'clock a.m., 2 o'clock. So I figured I'll get an early start. And sure enough, look who shows up at my front door with all his daughters and his wife. Shalom Aleichem. What was I supposed to tell him? Come on in. We'll prepare the shir a little later. It's Givaldik. So this is Avi Mandelbaum, if you don't recognize him. Avi. So Baruch Hashem. Let me just read a few quick emails tonight. Be'ezer Hashem, I am leaving. Dr. Dauber, you could be proud of me. I know you weren't happy that I drove from my house to my shver's house and went back into quarantine, but I let my family go because I'm makbid on the stuff. Don't think I'm not makbid. I am makbid, Dr. Dauber. He's shaking his head at no. He's still mad at me. Okay. Can't win them all. Let's see what we're going to do today. From John Gruen. I'll try to skip around here. It's kind of long. Thank you very much. Yaakov Yehuda Gruen for the yard side of Gershon ben Yosef Yehuda. A Talmud Chacham. He's explaining who this the yard side is. A Talmud Chacham that studied in the DJ Yeshiva before the war and became the ritual director at a large conservative shul in Southern California. I know I'm going to get an email from Jonathan Stefansky about this. Valley Beth Shalom. He was able to influence the congregants to keep kosher because his dad also did a similar thing. He was able to keep the congregants to keep kosher, started daily minyan, and taught the children for the bar mitzvah lessons. The leader of the congregation wanted to have his hesped in the shul. 1,200 people attended. It was the only time ever that they allowed a hesped in the shul. He was an Anav, a brave man who kept his emunah through the Shoah and helped rebuild Yiddishkeit in the post-war era of Eli. I decided Yeshua was the perfect modality to celebrate his yard side, as you, as a shepherd, have successfully brought so many lost sheep back to Torah education. At Groisen Shkoyach, hope to meet you after this Machles Oisun Fertig. Yaakov Yehuda Gruen, that's in Yiddish. When this Machle is gone, Halavai very soon. What else? We have from Ben Lapidus, Chashav Yungaman in Lakewood. I don't know where he lives now. He's just saying maybe it was called his dog. I brought a tremendous raya from Shmuel. He had a dog. All these people that are anti-dogs. By the way, I heard that in Chicago, I don't know about the rest of the world, because of COVID, many from people bought dogs. In fact, in Ramat Bet Shemesh, it's I need to take a picture. There's a guy with a frock and his hat and the beard, and he walks the dog as if this is normal stuff. In Ramat Bet Shemesh, it's almost normal. Maybe it's called his dog because he wasn't moicha on his neighbor. You hear this, Talmud Chacham? Because just like the Gemara says, Parasish Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, they called it his cow, even though it wasn't Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, because he was a moicha. So, everybody with their pshatim. I just learned Pasha Pshat in the Gemara. Shmuel had dogs. David HaMelech certainly had dogs, because Shlomo HaMelech asked what we should do. The body of David HaMelech was laying in the sun, and the dogs were hungry, and they're going to eat him. All right. Let's go weiter. Today, if you noticed, our in-house statistician, David Feinberg, he tainas that it's 300 daf from the Daf Beis of Brachas. So tremendous mazel tov to everybody who's from the start. And if today's your first day, so in 300 days from now, there'll be a tremendous mazel tov. But 300 is a tremendous accomplishment. Today is Daf Pei Gimel. We are holding, today's Daf Pei Beis, sorry. All right, it's a good thing it's not Pei Gimel, because I didn't really prepare Pei Gimel. Says the Gemara like this. Gufa, Pei Beis Amud Aleph, 2 lines down. Gufa Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Kol Makom Shomar Rabbi Yehuda Ein Mosai. Anytime the Mishnah mentions Rabbi Yehuda saying Ein Mosai, when is this? Like, there's one shita, and then he follows up with Ein Mosai, and he kind of explains. Or he says, B'med var mamurim, like in our Mishnah, he says, Ubameh b'Mishnah seinu, Ein elav farj v'chachamim. So that we learned yesterday. He's not arguing with chachamim that you need das, you need the agreement of the other party when it comes to Eruv Tchumim, but you don't need das when it comes to other Eruvim, because it's good for the person to have an Eruv. You don't need to contact them. They want you to do it for them. So there's no machlokes. Everybody agrees to that according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. We saw yesterday is a machlokes. According to Shmuel, there is a machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan Omar will take 50% of that. A Mosai, when it says the word a Mosai, lefarish. Then Rabbi Yehuda is coming to explain. Ubameh lachlek. So in other words, in our Mishnah that uses the lashon bameh dvarim amurim, according to Rabbi Yochanan, he argues on the Tanakama. Tanakama arguing on him. He says the Gemara, be Mosai lefarishu. So this is a very gishmak sugya. There are some people that are going to hate this sugya. I actually like it, because when I was younger, my dad never let me play even kvitlach. He said, "Oh no, you can't gamble. Asmachta leikanya." He used to go through the whole sugya with me. And so I never played kvitlach in my life. But it's a common thing, go stickle poker, a little this, a little that. So is poker okay, not okay? So let's see what the sugya says. Says the Gemara. So what are you telling me? The word a Masai comes to explain, and it's not an argument, but not it says in the Mishnah. Veilu en apsulim. It says in the pasuk that you have to be a pure aid. Al toshes Rasha aid. You can't be a Rasha and testify. What consists rishus? If you're over averis, you do certain averis. So, for instance, these are the people that are posulators, hamisachik bekubya. So we're going to see the concept of asmachta. Misachik bekubya is someone who gambles, uses dice, plays with the dice. You see it in Eretz Yisrael sometimes, like in Beis Yisrael, they throw dice on the floor. They're gambling on what number is going to come out. Gambling. What's the problem with gambling? There's a machlokes of a smachta leikanya. Since no one thinks in their right mind that they're going to lose. They're the professional gambler. They know how to do it. They know how to beat the house. So Memela, he's not willing to give up his money. So if you take his money, you're stealing. When he loses to you, you are stealing, because he never gave up. He thought in his mind he's going to come out a winner. Had he known the outcome before he started gambling, he wouldn't have gambled. So you're going to say, okay, but we do it, we were just playing around a few dollars, and that's probably the truth. If it's just kvitlach or whatever, you go in, yes, I'll lose $20, we'll have fun, give out. But somebody that does this on a consistent basis, that's a problem, because he's trying to make a living out of this. He really believes he's going to win, and if he believes he's going to win, that's an asmachta, loy kanya, some say kanya. If you lend money with interest, obviously without a heter iska, according to Rashi, is another way to gamble. You do a pigeon race. Whatever pigeon comes in first, that's the person that wins. And if you do business On Shemitah, as Rashi brings, it says la'achla v'loy l'schayra. You could eat the food from Shemitah, but you can't do business with it. Omer Rabbi Yehuda, a Mosai, reminds me of the tuna fish story, but we're not going to go in there. The tuna was for business, not for eating. You guys know what I'm talking about. Whatever. We can't repeat the same stories, even though it was probably a year ago. Omer Rabbi Yehuda, comes Rabbi Yehuda and says this word that we're discussing, a Mosai. So is he coming to explain or is he coming to argue? L'chayr, he's arguing. We just said that a Mosai is an explanation. But look, he argues. A Mosai is man shein lo yumanus. When he doesn't have a job, Elohi, the only job he has is gambling. So Mela. Now, what's going on here? Because Rabbi Yehuda holds asmachta kanya. Asmachta koina. It's his problem. He didn't think he's going to lose. That's his problem. But what's the problem here? A completely different problem. The problem is that when a person is not oisik b'yishuv shalaylam, he's not acting like a normal human being. So he lives in a different world. He doesn't understand regular things. You know, you go, a guy that lives in Atlantic City or Vegas, whatever, he lives in different, they fly him in jets, he's constantly in these suites. He doesn't know what's flying in the real world. They comp him on this, comp him on that, they just want his money. He's sufflagging when it comes to other people. Reb Chesky Rosenberg, Shalom Aleichem, you're in Brazil? Wow, I haven't seen you, I don't think I've ever seen you on Zoom. Beautiful, it's great to see you. Shalom Aleichem from Brazil. So a guy like that, he's going to take your money. He's going to do the wrong thing. And Memela, he doesn't care about his friends. By him, money is nothing. He'll take, he doesn't take. He's not Echom and Ayishuv. He's not a regular guy that has a job, 9 to 5. He knows what it means to earn $1. He doesn't understand this. So Mela, he sees your money, he takes your money. And Mela, that's why he's Pasala Eidos. He's a Ganav. But Dafka, if he doesn't have a job, if he has a job that doesn't include gambling, he has a regular line at night, he goes a shtickle gambling, he has a shtickle addiction, no, he's still kosher later. So that's Rabbi Yehuda. B'chachamim say, bein shein lo yumanos, Elohi, bein sheyesh lo yumanos. It doesn't matter whether he has a job or not. How is it possible? So what do we have? A straight out machlek is Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim. Whether it depends on if he has a job or not. Chachamim hold asmachta lo ikanya. So there's a problem of gneva in every gamble, every time he throws the dice, every time he puts down money, it's gneva. Everybody says no, there's a general problem with the guy that gambles, he's not so careful with other people's money. It's a real machlokes. Yet Rabbi Yehuda uses the word emosai. When does this happen? So you see that emosai is not an explanation. Emosai is a machlokes. Says the Gemara, no, you're right. Typically, emosai is an explanation, but over here, the Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rabbi Tarfon, he was just explaining. This is just Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rabbi Tarfon, that what Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rabbi Tarfon holds asmachta lo yikoina. The Sanya Omer Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Tarfon lo'ilam ein echad mem nazir. So what's going on? Again, talking about gambling. It's kind of a gamble move. You know, people that have that addiction, everything. But I'll bet you that that's blue. No, so everything. A guy's walking by, and a guy looks at the two friends. They look at each other and say, "I bet you he's a nazir." And if he's a nazir, I'm becoming a nazir. And he says, "I bet you he's not a nazir." And if he's not a nazir, I become a nazir. They're depending the naziros on the outcome of what that guy is. So, lo'ilam ein echad mehem nazir lefi she'ein nazirus el la'aflo. So Rabbi Tarfon says, neither of them are a nazir because when you say nazirus, when you say I become a nazir, it has to be 100%. It has to come out of his mouth straight out, not dependent on something else. Alma kivim misapkile nazir iloi nazir lo mishavet nafshei. Since they weren't sure, so they didn't give it their all. They didn't commit to it. So that's it. Over here, by gambling, he's not sure whether or not, Rashi says, he's going to win. Inotzach. He doesn't know if he's going to win. He's only willing to give up his money if he wins. Shkoyach. He's a sore loser. So Memela, Reb Tarfon holds Asmach L'Ikanya, therefore that. So it's not Rabbi Yehuda, it's not a Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda Chachamim, it's somebody else. Hadrun aloch chaloin, hadrun aloch chaloin, hadrun aloch chaloin. Says the Mishnah, Ketzad, we're doing a new parak, we can stop for a second. Can't get over that. Reb Chesky Rosenberg is still here. All the way. And Rabbi Twersky, I apologize. I know you're in Chicago. What are we going to do with the COVID matzav? Today we could have actually made a shir last night. But Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Twersky. Who else do we have here? Oh, Yisrael Espresso. Is that how you pronounce your name? Because I said it once. Well, you sponsored, or there was an email, right? Is it okay? Okay, fine. I said, yeah, it's like they put me on the spot with this English stuff. What is a Panavish guy supposed to read people's names? Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah. Ketzad mishtatvim betchumim. So a guy wants to be the nice guy of the city. There's a lot of people. There's a kiddush somewhere. They have to go. There's a nichum avelum. There's a big situation of dvar mitzvah out of town. He knows people are going to forget. So what does he do? He wants to be mizak everybody. Meniach es achaves va'omer harei lekol bnei iri. Nice guy. He puts his barrel. He says this should be for everybody. L'chol mi sheyelech lebeis ha'evel or lebeis hamishtos. If you notice, the Mishnah gives two examples of a dvar mitzvah. We mentioned throughout the Masechta that tchum is only for dvar mitzvah. Chaleks rishonim, whether once you make it for dvar mitzvah, could I use it for something else? Like, could I go already visit my friend? Or no, I'm mechuyev to go to the Beis Hamishta. I'm mechuyev to go to Beis Ev. Rashi seems to say that he's stuck going one way. V'chol shekibel olavim be'odyayim mutar. Now, any person in the city who wants to be part of this, by the way, could Eli Dykman, somebody like, do me a favor, monitor YouTube for a second. I don't know what's flying here. So anybody who decides to use the Eruv, of course, from Erev Shabbos, the Gemara is going to go into that. Mutter. Look, a guy provided. Now, it seems like somebody would have to make a kinyan for you, like we discussed. Zachan la'adam, you have to make a kinyan. Somebody else has to do it. Not me, the balabayis of the chavis is going to put down a chavis and say, oh, it becomes yours. How does it become yours? You have to make some sort of kinyan. Okay, so there's a kinyan. But you have to decide this before Shabbos. Once it becomes dark, also, it's too late. You can't make an Erev Tchumim when Shabbos starts. Omer Rav Yosef, in the Arvin Elad Var Mitzvah, so this is an old line we're familiar with. Says Rav Yosef, you can't make an Erev Tchumim only for mitzvah. What is the Erev Tchumim? In case you're new to Tchum, it's basically shifting your residence to one direction. A person is allowed to go 2,000 amas. So we shift those 2,000 amas. Instead of saying the 2,000 amas start from your actual house on East 42nd Street, it starts from wherever you place the Eruv. So you place the Eruv away from your house, your Eruv, your piece of bread, your 2 su'udais that you have, whatever, we're going to see the amount exactly how much it is today. So you put that bread somewhere, and then you start counting your 2,000 amas from that piece of bread. This guy went and put his whole barrel there, and whoever wants to use the barrel and say, from the barrel you could go 2,000 amas. That's only for Dvar Mitzvah, my Komashmalon, Tanina. We already learned this. The Kol Mishiyelech Lebeis Ha'evel Lebeis HaMishnah. Now our Mishnah says Mefurish that it was a mitzvah. It doesn't say to go visit a friend. It says he put it down so he could go be Menachem Aval. He could go to a bar mitzvah or a chasen or whatever it is. Beis HaMishnah. Says the Gemara, maybe the Mishnah was just saying it as an example. What does that mean? Because who in the right mind on Shabbos is going to start traveling? It's not the proper thing to do if you think about it. Why are you walking? It's a problem to walk. You're not even going to walk on Shabbos like you walk during the weekdays. So certainly, like to start spaziering, I know it's a minute to go visit a friend. You're supposed to be learning Torah. I don't know what you're supposed to be doing. Not walking in the desert. So l'chayr, you're walking in the desert. It makes sense that the Mishnah is saying because you have a very important thing to do, like going to Beis Ha'avel, Beis HaMishta. But maybe the Mishnah is not serious about it. Maybe the Mishnah is not saying that's the only. I'm giving you a normal reason why normal people walk on Shabbos. Kamash malon, that's the only reason. It's not a good example. It's actually halacha that the only time you could use it at Erev Tchumim is when you go in Lidvar Mitzvah. Now, la halacha, they paskin that once you do make that Eruv, now you could use it even for other things. So you could say, you know what, I have an Eruv to go to the bar mitzvah or maybe a chassan. I'm not going to use it today for the bar mitzvah. I decided I'm going to visit my friend. That's not cheating because the Eruv is already in place. That's how we paskin. Says the Gemara, V'chol shekibel olav me'ba'id yaim. Says the Mishnah that Ruvain places a whole barrel. He's trying to be nice to all the people in the city and he puts it on Erev Shabbos. If you didn't make up your mind on Erev Shabbos, it doesn't work. Why not? Don't we have the concept of Breira? Very geschmack, a concept of retroactive. That what? I decided on Shabbos I want to use the Erev. That means that Erev Shabbos I already knew about the Erev. I knew it existed. I didn't make up my mind. Do I want to go to the Bar Mitzvah? Do I want to go? So now that I decide I want to go to the Bar Mitzvah, retroactive, on Friday I already decided that. No? Isn't that the concept of Ein Breira? Yesh Breira. From here you see Ein Breira. L'chayra, it will be a very strong raya for the Manoma that says Ein Breira. Yesh Breira, because if you hold you could go retroactive, Tigali Misl Mafreya, it should become known retroactively. That's exactly what he wanted to do. Don't read it that he decided or not decided. What's the lashon here? Kibel olav meba'id yoim. Not that he's mekabel. He knew about it. In other words, if a person knew about the Eruv, then he could decide maybe after Shabbos starts, because retroactive, we understand what he wanted. But if a person never knew about an Eruv, there's no retroactive on something he didn't know. The Eruv didn't exist in his mind. So you can't say, oh, retroactively, I want to go to the Bar Mitzvah. It didn't exist. You didn't know about it. So that's the nafkamin. Nafkamin is whether he knew or didn't know, not whether he decided to go or not decided to go. Omer Avasi, Chatam ben Sheish Yoitze Be'eruv Imay. Very interesting. We didn't think about this so much. But I think we take it for granted that if you want to, let's say, go to the wedding, you want to go to the Sheva Brachas on Shabbos, you don't have to start involving your children. If the mother makes an Eruv, her son, the 6-year-old, is like her body, says Rashi. Kigufa. We have this concept of Ishta Kigufai. Over here we see something different. The son is one and the same with his mother. So when the mother makes an Eruv, automatically applies for the son. But at what age? Ben Sheish, 6 years old. Meisvei, wait a minute. Kadin shetzarach li'imoi yoytze be'eruv imoi. V'she'in tzarach li'imoi ein yoytze be'eruv imoi. So we have a concept. It depends how old the child is, how mature he is. If he needs his mom, then he can't use his mother's eruv. If he's one with his mother, he's a nursing baby, yeah, he's one with his mother. But where does it end and start? So the Gemara explains. We see by Sukkah exactly how old that is. With Nanami Gabi Sukkah, not exactly, but Be'erech, Nanami Gabi Sukkah, Kai Gavna, it says the same exact thing. So once we know what age is by Sukkah, obviously it's the same age by an Eruv, because all we're looking for is what is considered Katan Shetzarach Li'imai. What a minor who comes onto his mom all the time. What does it mean? Once the minor, the katan, doesn't need his mother anymore, he's independent. So now he's chayiv in sukkah for chinuch. And they ask over there in Masechet Sukkah, what's the definition? A kid that goes to the bathroom, she doesn't take care of his business, she doesn't use toilet paper, whatever, he doesn't need her anymore. It's very interesting. It has to do with the bathroom. A kid that's self-sufficient in the bathroom, he's done. He has to make his own. He's chayiv in a sukkah. And if he's chayiv in a sukkah, he's chayiv in an eruv. His mom can't make his eruv for him. Reb Shimon ben Lakish Amar, Kol Shaneir Mishnasai Ve'ena Koyri Ima. When he wakes up in the morning, he wakes up in the middle of the night, he has a nightmare, he doesn't start screaming, Mami, Mami. Says Gemara, well, Ima Sokadaitach, G'doylem Nami Karu. Even bigger kids, 10-year-olds also, they wake up, whatever problems they have at night, and they scream for their mother. It's a lot more than 6 years old. 7, 8, 9, 10. My son, he's 25, he still does. No. Okay, fine. Anyway, I'm kidding, Aaron, just kidding. Take it easy. Even a bigger kid. I'm sure you guys probably saw this. This kid goes, mommy, 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 mommy. What? Mommy, mommy. And finally, hi. So that's what the Gemara says here. A kid that just goes, mommy, mommy, doesn't stop for a second until you come get him. Okay, that's a different level. That's a baby kind of kid. How old is that? 4 or 5 years old. Anything older than that, he's going to scream, mommy, he might knock on the door, he'll do it a little bit more mature. He needs his mother, yeah. He needs his mother, but he's not going to go mishuga and scream like a 2-year-old, mommy, 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 until it nonstop. Okay. But what does this sugya tell us? 4 to 5 years old. Meaning 6 is way out at a maximum 5 years old. It's somewhere between 4 and 5. So where did our sugya get a 6-year-old? We're turning to Daf Beis, Amud Beis, in memory of my mother, Shendel Bad, Aaron Hirsch, and Bracha by her son, Dr. Alan Listhouse. Hi, Dr. Alan. We just schmoozed. Sponsored by the Austin and Tobias grandchildren. Lili Nishmas, our Bubby, Zissel Bas, Chaim, who's just nifter, literally mamish now, Gimel Mar Cheshvan. She's 98 years old. Great genes over there. All right. V'kamal kibar arva chomesh. Omer Yeshua, turning to Daf Beis Amud Beis, don't forget to turn. I say it, but sometimes people ask right after, where are we holding? we're sponsoring the turn of the page. Okay? Omer Yeshua v'rei Rav Idi. Kiko Omar Reb Asi Kigoin She'erav Olav Aviv L'Tzafaim V'Imoy L'Darim. When did this whole thing start? That couples argue about directions. You see, they had it in the time of the Gemara. In other words, up until 5, you're right, it's 4 or 5 years old. 4 or 5 years old, then the Eruv, when a mother makes an Eruv, it becomes the child's Eruv as well. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to say anything. They're one. Kigufa. Here's the Shaila. The Shaila is, there's an argument in directions. The wife says, why did you ask people? I asked my friends and they said it's to the right. So she places Eruv. She said, ignores her husband. She's a strong woman. She places her Eruv to the east. And the husband says, Meshuggah, you're very crazy, I'm going to ask the right. It's to the west. He places Eruv. So now the kid's stuck in the middle. What do you do? Which Eruv? What's going on here? So now, okay. What the Gemara is telling us is that the mother's Eruv is what wins out, because at the end of the day, he's 6 years old, he feels more comfortable with the mother, that's his Eruv. But when we're talking about automatic Eruvin, automatic Eruv only occurs when the kid is 5 years old. Says the Gemara, so we have a shayla. We just established that no, automatic Eruv is until what age? 5. That's an automatic. The question of 6 is the parents are arguing. Okay. But it says Mefurish in the Braisa, Vikama, again, Katan should tzarech li'ima yoytze be'eruv imay, a katan who needs to come onto his mother, the Eruv is automatically his Eruv, his mother's Eruv. It's his Eruv, Vikama, and how old is that? Ad ben sheish. So let's look at the words. Ad, up until ben sheish. The problem that we have right now is the sheish. We said it's chamesh, and now it says sheish. Is it 5 or 6? Tiyufta, the Rav Yeshua bar Ravidi. You're right, Tiyufta. Tiyufta, Rav Yeshua bar Ravidi. Tiyufta, in fact, it's a bam kasha on Rav Yeshua bar Ravidi, the first words of this Amud, who says that the automatic Eruv is up until 5. And over here it says automatic Eruv is up until 6. Fine. Another problem is, those words, ad ben sheish, tiyufta, leimet Rav Asi. Rav Asi says even a 6-year-old, and over it says ad ben sheish, up until 6. 5 and 99%, but that's it. Once it hits 6, it's all over. And Rav Asi is the one that said a 6-year-old. Oh, Rav Asi, that's not such a big deal. Ad vad b'chlal, okay. Famous ad vad b'chlal, when he said 6, when it says ad ben sheish, it means the entire year of 6. Like we call a 6-year-old, it means that's already 7. Okay, fine. We're not going to get confused with that. Ad vad b'chlal, meaning don't think that ad means up until 6, that anything that includes the number 6 in it is no good. No, it includes the whole year of 6. What about Rav Yanai in Sukkah? We said it comes onto the mother, bathroom, this, and we said, what is it? 4 and 5 years old. How come over here we're saying 6? Says the Gemara Leikasha. When the father is around, then he doesn't need his mother so much. So he's not so dependent on the mother. So maybe it's until 5 years old. That's in Sukkah. In Sukkah, the father was around. This is in America, in certain communities, the father's not around. So Mela, he's very dependent on the mother, and there. Then you go till 6. Tanra Ma'ariv Adam Ayidei B'noi Ubitoi Haktanim. Ma'ariv, we're talking about Tchum here. Now, the word Ayidei is a little interesting. It would be better if it said maybe, it would be easier to understand. Bishvil, let's say. A person can make an Eruv for his sons and his daughters who are Ktanim. Ktanim in this context is like we know Ktanim. We're not talking about 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old. We're talking about Bar Mitzvah, Bas, and Bar Mitzvah. Okay? Until 13 years old for a boy, 12 years old for a girl. So in other words, the father doesn't have to ask any permission, as we're going to see. He makes an Eruv, Shalma Yisrael. He has to go somewhere, he wants to schlep the whole family with him, he makes an Eruv. So Al-Yidei, again, once again, doesn't mean through them, and they're helping him out. Al-Yidei means for them. Just like a second ago, we said for his sons, for his slaves. His non-Jewish slaves are real slaves. In other words, he bought them, they're his. It's like having any object. Bein l'dayton, bein shalei l'dayton. You don't need to ask permission, you just do the Eruv and finished. Eved Knani, even though he's a guy, he's not a guy, because he has the mitzvahs of a woman. So you have to make an Eruv for him. Even though a Jewish slave, he sold himself to, it's the right, in Mishpatim, he sold himself. But no, you don't own him like you own a slave. You don't own him like you own an animal. It's different. He's there to help you out. He's your servant. He's not a slave. And you cannot force an Eruv on your older son that's more than 13 years old. You can't force your wife to make an Eruv. In other words, make an Eruv without telling her. You might be able to sell a house without telling her. By the way, I just sold my house this morning. And that's not why I stayed in Chicago. I mean, I have a contract on the house this morning. I didn't tell my wife yet, but she'll find out from somebody that listens to the share. No, she agreed. I think she agreed. I think. Ella medaitom. I told Dr. Allen, listen, I once bought a very nice house in Lincolnwood without telling her. Like I was talking to the guy and I convinced him to sell to me. He said, right, it's okay, let's go, let's buy. And then I came home, I was sure that she'd be jumping with joy. Famous house in the neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. She was so upset. What are you buying? What are you crazy? I don't want to live in a house like that. And then, Marty knows what I'm talking about. And then when I tried to sell it, she wouldn't let me sell it. Oh, it was a nightmare. Anyway, fine. Elo medaitum. So, okay, where are we? You need their das medaitum. Why do you need their das? So that we said already the svar before. Because when it comes to Eruv Tchumim, it could sometimes be a disadvantage. Why? Because Eruv Tchum, what was the word I used? You're misplacing, you're shifting. You're shifting the Eruv, your residence, from where you are, where your house is, to another area. But you can only go from that area 2,000 amas now. Now your residence became that piece of bread, and you go 2,000 amas in each direction of that bread, but that limits you to the opposite direction of your own house. And what if on Shabbos you decide to go to somebody else's bar mitzvah in a different neighborhood? You can't go. So it's a disadvantage. When it's a disadvantage, I cannot be zoicha, I cannot force my wife and my children that are older to make an eruv. Tanya yidach. Very similar, maybe with a little bit more of a knetch over here. You should not force make an eruv for your older children. And don't do it for your Jewish servants. And don't make an eruv for your wife, unless they know. So this we already had word for word. Avol, but you could, and this again we had before, you could do it for your non-Jewish slaves, and for your younger children that are under bar mitzvah. Whether they know or they don't know, they're aware of it or not aware of it. So it says over the Brisa, adds a few words, because they are your possession. You kind of own them. Certainly your slave, even your children. They're one with you. What if they made their own eruv to the east? And the master, the man of the house, he made an eruv to the west. So in a situation where there's two Eruvin, they could use the master's, not their own. That's it. They could say, okay, I want to go to the left. And whatever they did by themselves is batal u'mevutal. Chutz mina isha. If a woman goes to the right, you leave her, let her go to the right. Let her figure out by herself if she made a mistake in directions. She cannot piggyback on your eruv. She cannot use your eruv. Mipnei, why? Because since she has the ability to say, I don't want your eruv, so therefore, when you make an eruv for her, and she made an eruv, she cannot use your eruv. Ask the Gemara, Isha Maishna. Well, what about your older son? He could also be Meicha. He could also say, I don't want to use your eruv. So why is it that if you make an eruv and your older son makes an eruv, he could use either one? Shouldn't he be like the wife? Says the Gemara, he is like the wife. When it says woman, a wife, it doesn't mean only a wife. It means anybody who has their own das and they're their own people. They're not owned by anybody, such as a wife, such as older children. When they make an eruv and you make an eruv, then they have to use their own eruv. Says the Gemara, Omar Mar, we just learned a second ago, besides a woman, because she could say, I don't want to use this eruv. Taima de machi. It's because she said no. What's a mecha? Mecha says, I don't agree with this. I don't want to do this eruv. What if she doesn't say anything? Hastama. If she just closed her mouth, nafkim midbala. Bidabala. So she could be yaitza with her husband's eruv. L'chayra, right? You make a simple diuk. It says, because she could be meicha, she has the ability to say no. But what if she didn't say no? She's parav. Doesn't say anything. So she could use her husband's l'chayra. Now, haktani reisha ela medaitam. But if we are medaik from the words of the reisha, it seems differently because it says you need their consent. Medaitam. My love, damriin. L'chayra means they said yes. Consent means yes. And mecha means no. So we have a little bit of a problem. What about the middle case? The parav case. Not yes and not no. From the reisha, it's mashma that they have to say yes, and if it's parav, it's a no. And from the sefer where it says that they have to say no, mashma that if it's parav, it's yes. So which one is it? Says the Gemara, when it says that they consented, it just means that they were quiet. And that's the halacha. Quiet, being quiet, shtika kaida, we know throughout Shas. Being quiet means, I agree. If somebody says, hey, I made an error for you, and you don't say no, yes, you just look at them like a glump, that's a good error. That means you agree. Because if you didn't agree, you'd start screaming. What do you mean? Now I'm restricted. I can't go that way. I was planning on going to that bris. You were quiet, that means you're okay. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. It says, by the way, I want to give a tremendous ishkoyach. I see there's 65 people on Zoom. It's the middle of, I don't know what. It's 3 o'clock in New York now, in the afternoon. It's 9 and 10 o'clock in Eretz Yisrael. It's not the regular time. Thank you very much for the support. It's very much appreciated. I know that's hard to keep up with my traveling. You don't have to, and you came out here. It's beautiful stuff. Shkoyach. Says the Gemara, it says that when there was a stam, there was a parav, the master, the man of the house made an eruv. It says everybody is yoytz with the eruv. In a parav situation, it's not good. Omarava, the most obvious answer in the world. What do you mean she didn't say no? She made her own eruv to the opposite direction of you. That's the biggest no in the world. When a person says no, that's one thing. And when a person makes an eruv in the opposite direction of you, that's even worse than saying no. Let's say, you're completely nuts. You could go that way, and I'll see you later. I'm going the opposite direction. So that means she was meicha. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi said, if you look carefully at Avi Farkovich, you'll see he's wearing a 8-minute daf thing. Shkoyach. I don't know where did you get that one? So Uncle Phil is doing business on the side, I hear. Okay. Coming soon to an amazing savings near you. What is this Erev Tchumim going on? Whatever. Coming soon to a Walmart near you. Fine. How much is a Tchum? How big is it? How big is this Erev? So we're familiar with this concept. 2 meals worth for each and everybody, each and every person. What kind of meal? Shallots, pizza time. What kind of meal? It's talking about a vachadik meal, a weekday meal, not a Shabbos meal. In other words, Remeir's mekel. Remeir says you don't need a giant meal, the fish and the gefilte fish and 2 types of fish and cholent and meat and no, just the sandwich that you eat on a weekday. Marty Dauber showing the shallots bag. Okay. Divrei Rebbe Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer l'Shabbos v'lo l'chol. I like this a lot. I mean, I'm not a big Shalosh Shudas guy, unfortunately. That's one of my big weaknesses, is Shalosh Shudas. Because by the time Shalosh Shudas comes around, I cannot eat. I usually only eat like 1.5 meals a day, and the Shalosh Shudas. And Rabbi Yehuda, I think, is saying this exact idea, that people should, not they do. I think he's saying they should. People should eat less on Shabbos because you want to do 3 meals on Shabbos. So that each meal you break it up nicely so that you're not stuffed. You don't have to do that, eating kazayis, stuffing it down with water, making sure it goes down so that you yoytz Shalosh Shudas. You want to come to Shalosh Shudas starving. I think that's what he's saying. In other words, he's telling you, Rabbi Yehuda holds, that on Shabbos you eat less than in the weekday. In the weekday, you don't care about how many Shudas. You eat because you want to be satiated and you go weiter. But on Shabbos you eat less. That's what he holds. In other words, the bottom line is he's saying that there's a kula here. Go by the lesser Suda, which is called Shabbos, versus the weekday Suda, which is more. And that's what the Mishnah says. At the end of the day, if you think about it, they're both trying to make it easier. We're talking about an Erev. Erev is always Lakula. Great. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika Omer. Oh, here starts the fun stuff. Wow. Okay. Says Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, but it only lasts until the bottom of the page. Don't worry about it. I'll lie like that. Okay. Mikikor bepudyoin midalit soim besal. Just to read it is difficult, but it's okay. It goes like this. How much he argues on Remeir Rabbi Yehuda. Remeir Rabbi Yehuda say it's a meal, Shabbos meal, weekday meal. Fine. They say no. We're gonna have 2 shittas. I'll tell you exactly how much it is. It's a bread. It's a loaf of bread that I buy. It costs it's the size of a half a kav. I'll just show you real quickly what I did here. Just simple stuff. So we don't have to. If you want to do the whole cheshbon, you could look in Rashi. The whole cheshbon. The bottom line is, it's a half a kav bread. A kav is a measurement. It's a half a kav that he bought for 1 pudyon. Okay, a pudyon. In 1 selah, you have 48 pudyons. In other words, it's a 48th of a selah. So it's very simple. with a sela, you could buy at that time. How much could you buy with a sela? Okay, it was when the market was exactly this. That what? For one sela, you could buy 4 saw, which a pudyan is 1/48. Okay, and you could buy with a sela 4 saw. That's how much wheat you could buy, and that equals 24 kav, or to make it simpler, 48 half kavs. Right? 24 kav equals 48 half kav. So if I want to know what could I buy with one pudyan? One pudyan is 1/48 of a sela, and for one sela I could buy 48 half kavs. So in other words, one pudyan I could buy a half a kav of bread. That is a shear of 2 sudas. That kind of bread, a half a kav bread, great. Not a big deal. So let's see it inside. Mikikar bepudyan, where I could buy a loaf of bread with one pudyan. Midalid sa'in besela, when I could buy with one sela 4 saw of wheat. Okay. Reb Shimon Oimer, Reb Shimon says it differently. Shtei yadois, it's 2/3 lekikar. I could buy 2/3 of a bread. Mishalosh lekav. It's just the language is very difficult. I can make from 1 kav 3 breads, and I'm going to use, that's what he says, mishalosh lekav. Mishalosh lekav means 3 breads from 1 kav. But how much bread am I eating in 2 sudas? I'm not eating 3 breads, I'm not a meshuga. So what am I eating in 2 meals? 2/3 of 1 bread. And I can have this 3 breads in a kav. Okay? So this is your 2 sudas. 2/3 of 1 bread. Now, once I know that, says Reb Shimon, chetzia lebeis hamenuga. 1/6 of a kav is for the beis hamenuga. So that's a very interesting halacha. We mentioned it a few times. Here's a half a bread. Beis hamenuga is if a person walks into a house. I didn't print the picture. There's tsaras in a house. The wall has a nega tsaras. Kain says it's tameh. You walk into the house, you become tameh. But what about your clothing? Depends how long you stay in the house. If you stay in the house enough time for you to eat a pras, which is a half a loaf of bread, then your begadim become tameh. Tovel your begadim in the mikveh as well. What's a half a loaf of bread? Here, a half a bread. You can make 3 breads out of a kav, and a half of that 1 bread. Chetzi lebeis hamenuga. V'chatzi, a half of a half. In other words, in English, a quarter. Lifsoil is hagvio. So psul, when a person becomes pasul, is a term that we use when he's trying to eat truma. If he cannot eat truma, he's pasul. He's not tameh. So if he eats tuma food, if a kohen eats tuma food, how much food? A quarter of a loaf of bread. If he eats a quarter of a loaf of bread, now his body is not tameh, because you cannot become tameh from eating tameh food, but your body becomes pasul. It cannot eat truma and kachim. Right? So that is the Mishnah. Should we do a few more minutes? Let's do a few more minutes. We'll get to Rabbi Yochanan and Breika. V'kama mazin shtei sudos. The Gemara says, how much is 2 sudos? Didn't we just go through this? We just broke our head to understand. It's a bread that you bought for 1 pudyan. No, it's a 2/3 of 1 bread that you have 3 breads in a kav. So we already know. Oh, explains Rashi, according to Rameir and Rabbi Yehuda, they say that it's a suda on Shabbos. No, it's a suda on the weekday, whatever it is. But how much of the suda? What are you eating? Tarte rifta, ikar yasa. Ikar is a farmer. So when a farmer goes out into his field, he brings sandwiches with him, whatever he brings. It's a small bread. He's not bringing the challah from a chassan with him. He's bringing like whatever fits into his little bag. So Mamela, 2 of those. Ravada Rav Amar, Tarte Rifta, Nahar Papiyasa. 2 breads from the place called Papiyasa. Amalei Rav Yosef Berei de Rava. Rav Yosef told the son of Rava, who's also called Rav Yosef, and the Bach over here doesn't like that. Because Rav Yosef is asking him a question. What is he asking? Avuch keman svirle. How does your father hold? Now, why would Rav Yosef care what Rava holds? Rava is Rav Yosef's Talmud. It's also possible, I didn't go through this because I'm not very good at it. I have to ask my chavrusa or my father, but you guys could figure it out. Maybe the Bach understood that Rava was nifter after Rav Yosef, because Rav Yosef only lived, he was the Rosh Yeshiva for 2.5 years, and then he was nifter. It's most likely that Rava lived after Rav Yosef, and you probably could prove it from different Gemaras. So that's why he knew that when he's asking Rava's son, it can't be Rava's son. Rav Yosef probably wasn't alive. But anyways, let's just go to the Pashup Pshat. Why would Rav Yosef ask Rava? He doesn't ask Rava. All through Shas, Rava always asks Rav Yosef. What's Pshat? Rav Yosef doesn't ask Rava. Says the Gemara, Avuch keman svirle, Kirim Meir svirle. So his son whips it out right away. So it makes more sense, the Bach says, it's Rabba. Rabba and Rav Yosef, they were contemporaries. Famous Rabba and Rav Yosef. And that's why, throughout Shas, they switch Rabba and Rava, Rabba and Rava. Great. Avuch keman svirle, Kirim Meir svirle. Now what? We go based on a weekday meal. I also hold that you go on a weekday meal, Rabbi Yehuda, because if you go by a Shabbos meal, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that on Shabbos you eat less, and everybody's probably thinking to themselves, well, who in the world eats less on Shabbos? That's what the Gemara says here. There's a famous saying, there's always room for dessert. Now, there's always room for dessert, but you're not stuffed. If on Shabbos you don't eat as much as during the weekday, why would they say this saying about Shabbos? Obviously, Shabbos you eat more than the weekday, and that's why I, Rav Yosef, hold like Rav Meir, that we base it on the weekday Suda, which is less than the Shabbos Suda. Rabbi Boisai, have a wonderful day. Oh, I want to ask everybody, what do you guys think? It's not in general, I'm curious, what's the halacha, benegat to a streak? Now, there's no streaks in Yiddishkeit, but if I'm going for a streak, let's just say I want to keep up my streak. Does this shir help as if I gave shir on Friday because people are going to watch it on Friday? Or I have to sit down in the Beis Medrash and give a shir? It's good? Somebody unmute everybody because shir is over. You're just saying it to make me feel good? Because what's going to happen is... Hold on, what does Matisyahu Steinberg have to say about this? The what?
It's about the Yomi.
It's about the Yomi, has to be on Friday also. I hear that. I'm very choshed. It's gonna show, it's the Yomi, it's gonna show in Eretz Yisrael on Friday. But I didn't say it on Friday. Oh, it's already Friday in Eretz Yisrael. You're saying good. Wait a minute, he's saying good. He's saying good. It's yeah.
Just do an 8-minute daf tomorrow.
Yeah. Wow. I might have to get up there and just give a shir. All right, Rabbi Isai, if you're in America, if you're in America, well, what time will No, that's cutting it close. I'll give. You know what? I'll give a shir in the taxi, but we won't record it. And Shalom Al Yisrael. That's what we'll have to do. Yeah.
Michael Austin, I wanted to thank you for changing the shir to 3 o'clock. I landed at 2:50, and I was in the car at 3 something. And first live shir in the car. I wanted to thank you for changing the time for me.
You see, there's always somebody. Thanks, Michael. Thanks. There's always somebody that will be better for him. I
He spoke on the phone.
Yeah. The one I called, what did I call him? I didn't call him Jonathan, I called him Justine.
Call him Justine.
Is that going to be the joke in the family now?
Well, in my family, that is his new name.
I need a pack, and Be'ezer Hashem, I think the cat wants to say hello to everybody. Wow, Baruch Hashem, for the last week we didn't have any tzars with him, but it's the middle of the day. Come here. Namur, come here. Say goodbye to everybody. Oh, Here he is. Here he is. Come. Meshugana, come here. Come here. Come here.
Did you sell him with the house?
I sold my son with the house. Whether the cat comes with the house, I don't know. Hold on, let me turn off YouTube for a second. Oh no, maybe on YouTube they're gonna want to see. Come here. No more. You don't know Mitch? Oy vavoy. Look, he's biting. You see this? Oy vey. Oy vavoy.